The Lord of Darkness, Part 2, Chapter 14, David. 51 years after Samson's demise, the Israelite army was decimated by Philistine hero Goliath. King Saul, who ruled over the Israelites, offered his daughter's hand in marriage as a reward for whoever could kill Goliath. David, a young shepherd boy, took him up on the challenge. Goliath suffered from gigantism, so, although he was strong and powerful against group attacks, he was severely lacking in depth perception. When David slung that rock at him, Goliath didn't even see it coming. He heard rather than felt his skull crack. It was the last thing he heard on earth. David severed Goliath's head and carried it back to King Saul, who rewarded him handsomely, encouraged him to stay as long as he liked, and even made him an army officer. But David's bond with Saul's son Jonathan was much stronger. They soon loved each other more than they loved themselves and swore eternal love and friendship. Soon after, Archdemon Leviathan of Envy was stationed at Saul's side indefinitely. His presence strengthened envious feelings in nearby humans, but he could also influence them more directly. We don't, and presumably can't but never try, force people to do anything. When we influence emotions, it's never to the point that you can't overcome them, albeit with difficulty. And when we make suggestions, you perceive them as passing thoughts to do with as you please. So, when Leviathan whispered, "Jonathan has certainly taken a liking to David," Saul quickly dismissed it, but the seed was planted. Saul habitually changed his daily route, just in case someone planned to ambush him. That was how he stumbled upon Jonathan kissing David goodnight a few months later. Saul became enraged and threw a spear at David, who managed to dodge it. King Saul decided the best course of action was to divert David's attention by marrying him off to one of his daughters, as he'd initially promised. Nevertheless, David and Jonathan fell further in love and affection. As products of their environment, they didn't even consider the possibility of marrying each other, in the same way they didn't consider the possibility of traveling to the moon. As the years passed, Saul's grudge against David continued to grow. He wanted David dead, but couldn't justify the murder to his council. And all along, Leviathan tempted him with envy. Before provoking Saul further, Leviathan called in Archangel Michael of security to protect David. Sure enough, Saul threw another spear at David, which Michael knocked off course just enough to be believable. David fled the city, and Michael stayed by his side. As soon as he was able to, David snuck back into the city to find Jonathan. Jonathan was unwilling to believe that his father was trying to kill David, so David offered to prove it to him. David said, "Tomorrow's the start of the New Moon Festival, and I'm supposed to dine with Saul every night. I won't show up. Just watch how he overreacts. You'll know I'm right." "And if he's indifferent, you'll know I'm right," Jonathan retorted. David murmured noncommittally, "One more thing. If it goes horribly wrong and I'm going to be executed, I want you to do it." "Don't even think that," Jonathan exclaimed. "If I find out my father plans to kill you, I'll help you escape. I'll never break the promise I made to love you forever." "I promise to keep loving you too," David whispered, pressing his forehead against Jonathan's. On the first night of the New Moon Festival, King Saul noticed David's absence, but didn't think much of it. When David was still missing the next day, Saul confronted Jonathan. Jonathan explained that David was visiting home. Saul lost his temper and threw a spear at his own son, and missed. Leviathan prayed to Michael. "Saul just tried to kill Jonathan." "Holy shit, you serious?" Michael exclaimed. "How much envy did you hit him with?" "Like 10%. "That's it?" Michael marveled. "This never would have happened on Uxor or any of our other worlds." Leviathan laughed mirthlessly. "You're telling me. Humanity's the worst, and we all know whose fault that is." The next morning, Jonathan met up with David and admitted that Saul was trying to kill him. They both cried as they kissed each other. "May God go with you," Jonathan said, "and may he ensure we keep our promise to each other." Michael sighed soundlessly. "Yeah, we'll do our best. I wish you dumbasses bothered to think up a whole plan first." David went to priest Ahimelech in the town of Nob for supplies. He gave a believable excuse and was provided with food and weapons. Over the next year, he traveled from place to place, always imagining Saul's footsteps behind him. Saul's hatred of David festered into an obsession. When Saul heard that the priest Ahimelech gave David supplies, he summoned Ahimelech and his family and accused him of treason. "But, your majesty, David's your most faithful officer," Ahimelech argued. "He's your son-in-law, captain of your bodyguard, and highly respected by everyone in the royal court. Yes, I gave him supplies, and it wasn't the first time. But please don't accuse me or my family of plotting against you. We've done nothing wrong." King Saul turned to his guards and said, "Kill them." Saul didn't stop there. He put all the inhabitants of Nob to death, all the adults, all the children, all the domesticated animals, except Ahimelech's son, Abiathar, who managed to escape and flee to the relative safety of David's side. "What the hell?" Nick exclaimed from his office in hell. "Did someone drop a tornado on Nob?" He prayed to his then head of demon operations. "Albert, give me a status report." Albert teleported into Nick's office in a flash of light. "On what, your excellence?" "Don't call me that," Nick said for the umpteenth time. "What's up with the village of Nob? Their whole population just died. Animals, too. Oops, whole population -1. Are you handling this? Do you need more staff to deal with the sudden influx of souls? Talk to me." I don't... More staff would be good," Albert stammered. Nick rubbed his eyes tiredly. He'd really thought continuing to delegate some of the work was a good idea, but so far, Albert was more of a hindrance than a help. Maybe it was just Albert. Nick caught himself wishing a more competent human would perish and shook the thought from his head. He would have been devastated to learn how many centuries would pass before Hector lived, died, and took over demon operations. "How much more staff do you need?" Nick asked. Albert replied. "Well, let's work it out," Nick said. "How many souls does the average reaper reap in a day?" And so forth. Back on Earth, David traveled around defending villages and giving God credit for his victories. He was well known and loved throughout the land, and it didn't hurt to have Michael inspiring kindness in everyone nearby. The Archangel of Kindness and Security didn't assist in the battles per se, but he shielded David from harm. Michael watched the humans and despaired at all the hatred and bloodshed. He saw it as more proof that Nick broke humanity millennia ago, and that they should have been recycled on the spot. Michael couldn't, or wouldn't, see the love. And then one day, Nick appeared in a wriggling mass of shadows that slithered away like so many serpents. His shirt pictured a coiled, sleeping snake. When he saw Michael, the snake on his shirt awoke and poised, ready to strike. Nick groaned. "Oh, come on! I filled out my entrance paperwork perfectly." "Did you come here just to tell me that?" Michael asked. "What? No, Nick began, but stopped when Michael's statement registered. "Wait, what are you doing here?" Michael scoffed. "You'd know that if you showed up to meetings. I'm protecting David." "Fuck!" Nick groaned. "Why are you here?" Michael asked. "I gotta follow David around to strengthen his followers' faith in him," Nick said. "Oh." Michael and Nick stared at each other for a long moment as they came to terms with the fact that they'd be spending a lot more time together. Nick pulled a flask out of his pocket dimension and took a long swig. Michael sighed. "Nick, we're working." "I'm always working," Nick argued. "Hell's so packed that I haven't slept a wink in some number of years. I just got out of 14 back-to-back meetings, the last of which I got dragged out of to be here, and I need a drink. I don't gotta justify myself to you anyway." Michael said, "You've been drinking too much since..." Nick's eyes flashed and shadows flickered dangerously. "Are you implying that it's somehow Eve's fault?" "You wouldn't be in this tailspin if..." Michael asserted. "You know, we don't gotta talk while we're here," Nick suggested. Michael scoffed. "Big surprise you don't want to talk." But Nick was already too busy ignoring him to respond. Nick and Michael proceeded to stubbornly not talk about anything but work for years, sometimes going months without speaking at all. David was in the wilderness near Ziph when Jonathan managed to meet with him again. They fell into each other's arms and held on tightly. "I've missed you so terribly," said David. "I know the feeling," Jonathan chuckled, kissing him desperately. "I can't help thinking this might be the last time. David began, but was interrupted by another kiss. Tragically, it was the last time they saw each other on Earth, although they see each other plenty in heaven. They invited literally everyone in the universe to their wedding, and the reception lasted a full month. "Don't be afraid," Jonathan said firmly. "My father can't hurt you now with all the support you've been gaining. Deep down, he knows you'll be the king of Israel, and I'll be next in rank to you." "Does that bother you?" David asked. Jonathan shook his head. "Honestly, no. Secretly, I've never wanted to be king. Too much pressure. But I've always wanted to be a more trusted advisor to the king." "Then you shall have it," David replied. "And of course, you have my love and friendship forever. As you have mine." Unbeknownst to the humans, Nick commented, "At least David and Jonathan can still sneak out to see each other occasionally." Michael rolled his eyes. "Oh, so you do want to talk about it?" "Of course I want to talk about it, Michael," Nick snapped, "but you and the rest of our siblings made that impossible." Michael groaned. "Will you just get over it already?" "You fucking kidding me?" Nick retorted. "Nick, I've seen you do this at least 1 billion times." Nick scoffed. "You really haven't." "Yes, I have," Michael insisted. "You fall for a girl, it falls apart, then you fall apart. And then you get your shit back together and move on. Face it, Nick, you only because you can't if you actually got to you'd lose interest in no time flat." Nick shook his head. "You really don't get it. This isn't some random girl. I'm seriously in love with her. She's my soulmate and I'm not gonna get over it." "Ugh, how are you so stubborn?" Michael exclaimed. "It's been 8.5 millennia, Nick. I'm sorry, okay? How many apologies will it take to fix this?" 6. 6? 6! Nick shouted. "One from each of you in the form of a vote to repeal your decision." Michael sighed. "Nick, it's not safe." "Then find a way to make it safe," Nick pleaded. "It's what you do." "If it was the wrong decision, God would have rejected it," Michael argued. "If you were really sorry, you'd vote to repeal anyway," Nick retorted. "Just like if you really cared about me, you would have voted against it in the first place because you knew it was going to pass either way." "I voted for the right thing," Michael contended. "I can't throw morality out the window just because your feelings might get hurt." "You're supposed to be my... Ugh! Never mind. Let's just go back to not talking," Nick suggested. "Good idea." Time trudged along as Saul hunted David, and David amassed followers. Eventually, Saul caught up again, but David got the drop on him. The moment had finally arrived. Archangel Uriel of repentance and forgiveness appeared at Michael's side, and they both directed their powers at David, who found himself suddenly bursting with feelings of kindness and forgiveness. Instead of killing Saul, David cut the edge off Saul's cloak without his knowledge. "Hey Saul, see this? You're still alive, which proves I'm not trying to kill you. Can we move past this misunderstanding?" Archdemon Leviathan of Envy threw a cheeky salute at Michael and Uriel before teleporting away. Nick didn't offer so much as a wave goodbye before vanishing in a crackle of darkness. Michael and Uriel redirected their powers at Saul, who suddenly wondered how this whole thing could have escalated so much. Saul started to cry. "David, my son, you've been so good to me while I've been terrible, and you still didn't kill me. I understand now. You will be king of Israel, and this is why. I could never be a king like that. Promise me you'll let my family and name live on." "Consider it done," smiled David. He'd never intended to let Jonathan's, ergo Saul's, line die out. When Jonathan died years later, David essentially adopted his son, Mephibosheth. Everything seemed fine, so Michael and Uriel left. Without their influence, Saul went back to pursuing David. Eventually, David was in a position to kill Saul a second time. Uriel and Michael were on standby in case it went wrong, but David learned from the last time and decided to spare Saul's life again. The rest of us, who were gathered at a view screen in heaven, burst into applause.